Thanks for that great introduction. Today I'm going to spend some time talking about how Microsoft Azure can solve many of your enterprise application needs. I'll start by explaining the modern application landscape and talk about how Microsoft Azure was built for the enterprise. And then I'll spend time talking about 5 reasons that you can run your Microsoft applications on top of Azure. I'll end with some great demos and a Q&A section. So let's get rolling. The cloud has become undeniably powerful as more organizations move their solutions in taking advantage of the benefits it offers. Businesses are planning their cloud strategies and forecasting the best methods that they can use the capabilities of agile and fast deployments. Gartner has predicted over 47% of organizations are planning to move their core ERP systems to the cloud within 5 years. And more than 65% of enterprise IT organizations are planning to commit to hybrid cloud technologies before 2016, according to IDC. In fact, IDC suggests that by 2017, 35% of new applications will use cloud-enabled continuous delivery and DevOps lifecycles for faster rollouts, for new features and business innovation. It's truly a modern application landscape. Microsoft Azure offers all of that agility and power, but it was built for the enterprise. It's built enterprise-grade focused, with Azure G and D series using the latest Intel cloud technologies. Many of your peers already use the Azure cloud. 57% of Fortune 500 companies rely on Azure, including companies like Heineken, 3M, GE Healthcare, Milliman Towers Watson, NBC Sports, TVB, and many, many more. It's a recognized leader in Gartner Magic Quadrants, and it offers industry-leading commitments to your data protection, security measures, privacy policies, and compliance programs. But beyond that, it's a hyperscale cloud. You can run your apps anywhere across more than 20 different regions using an open and flexible platform from many different operating systems, from Windows to Red Hat to Ubuntu. And you can scale as you need, pay as you go with Azure's near infinite capacity. And as you're deploying into Azure, you can take advantage of the hybrid capabilities. This means you don't just have to choose public or private or hosted cloud, but all of them combined. You can extend your existing IT capabilities, move workloads easily across your data center in Azure, and deploy even tiered workloads to achieve the best solutions of both worlds. This includes the recently announced Azure Stack public preview. There are 5 exciting reasons why Azure is a fantastic place to deploy Microsoft enterprise applications. The first is focusing on dev test. Dev test enables very agile environments with infrastructure immediately on demand. You can get started quickly, easily, and painlessly to try things out. Do something you never thought you could before. Global reach allows you to extend your IT all over the world, in places you've never been before or places you may need additional space. This global reach gets close to your end customers and to your solutions. You can get started amazingly fast with very, very simple deployment and management ease. Microsoft has the best solutions for deploying enterprise capabilities, and Azure offers the fastest way to deploy those solutions. With just a few clicks and just a few selections, you have a fully running, capable application environment. Support. Microsoft Azure offers best-in-class support for the infrastructure that's running. It also offers best-in-class support for the applications running on that infrastructure. And so with Microsoft Azure, the only place that you can get both that enterprise application support and that infrastructure support right next to each other, sitting literally side by side. And finally, in Microsoft Azure, you can bring those existing licenses. You don't have to decide what you're going to spend in the public cloud and what you're going to spend in your private, hosted, or on-premises environment. No, you can deploy with the existing apps you have, move them into the cloud, and apply them to instances running in Azure without having to buy new licenses. Digging into some more of the details, Azure offers the best dev test experience for Microsoft applications, second to none. With just a few clicks, you can quickly provision and deprovision environments. You can deploy some of the latest solutions that Microsoft has to offer with pre-configured images, whether they be Windows 8.1, 7.10, a variety of Visual Studio solutions, SharePoint, SQL, and many, many more. You can deploy any software that's covered by your MSDN subscription for dev test purposes with no additional charge. And while deployed in Azure, you pay for only what you use per minute, which allows you to take advantage of both the infrastructure pricing and the licensing pricing at very, very granular scales. Azure offers a comprehensive hybrid story at a global reach for customers. With Azure, you can take advantage of some of the hybrid solutions already built into products, geared towards taking advantage of the low cost and broad scale that Azure already has. This includes SQL Server Stretch Database, Site Recovery for disaster recovery, Azure Backup to take advantage of inexpensive cloud storage, ExpressRoute and Office 365 connectivity, even getting SQL backups and always-on secondaries deployed into the Azure infrastructure makes it very easy to take advantage of that public cloud environment without having to change your private on-prem deployments. With Azure Active Directory, you can simply connect your identities directly into the cloud and even deploy and exchange disaster recovery with instances deployed all over the world. With ExpressRoute, we're constantly growing the connectivity to be able to take advantage of the solutions you already have and the partners you're already using. And finally, with Azure Stack, you can finally get hybrid application deployments where the same models, the same single-click experiences deploy in both private, hosted, and public clouds all over the world. Getting started has never been easier. With the new Azure portal experience, you can get started very, very quickly. You can configure it with just a few clicks, and templates are there for you to completely configure both the infrastructure and the app all at one go. The portal's incredibly easy to use, and the dashboards enables you to track your consumption very, very easily. With Azure Active Directory and Azure Active Directory domain services, you can even simplify identity and access control all in the same experience. Microsoft Azure offers a one-stop enterprise support experience for your entire technology stack. When you're deploying Microsoft applications, whether they be Exchange or SharePoint Server, SQL Server, System Center, TFS, Dynamics, and even just Windows, you have a full support experience from the infrastructure, running the actual cores, up to the application experience running at the very top of the stack. This enables very easy single call experience for any problems you may have with your application. And this comes with a very flexible technical support option for customers of all sizes and all shapes. Finally, with Microsoft Azure, you can move your software license to Azure without any hassle and without any limitations. Take advantage of license mobility to move key workloads into Azure. With software assurance, you can deploy those apps without purchasing any new licenses, whether it be Dynamics or SharePoint or SQL. They can move with ease. Finally, with our recently announced Azure Hybrid Use benefits, you can even assign Windows Server software assurance licenses to Azure instances, meaning you pay the infrastructure price for those instances running because you've already purchased those licenses as part of your software assurance. This offers some of the easiest and simplest deployments of Microsoft applications anywhere. Azure is the absolute best for Microsoft workloads. Whether you're deploying SQL Server, where it can run its best on Azure, using it for a hybrid environment, maybe using StretchDB. You can deploy SharePoint across a set of many, many instances to get highly available experience, or just across a few for your dev test environment. You can quickly get going with the Dynamics deployment with just a few clicks. And you can launch an Exchange server to be able to take advantage of the cost-effective dev test and the DR environment available. But don't take my word for it. Let me tell you a few stories about customers who are using these solutions to deploy Microsoft applications on Azure. The city of Seattle decided it didn't want to invest in any more expensive buildings. It needed to understand how it was using power and how it could improve the usage of that power. So working with Microsoft, Seattle built out the High Performance Buildings Project. The goal was to be able to take a huge amount of data, terabytes of real-time energy data, be able to put it into the storage system in Azure, take SQL Server 2012 to process that data, and then explore it and explain it to their customers using SharePoint Server 2013. All of this came together using the very agile environment of Azure, and solved many of their problems to be able to reduce the energy usage by 25%. Another great success story is Esri. Esri is a geographic information system solution provider, looking to scale out its solution to meet more of its customers' needs. It developed the ArcGIS Online, based on Microsoft Azure, and it took advantage of Office Dynamics and SharePoint Server to create a simplified business intelligence process to deliver the solutions to their end customers much more easily and much more scalable. And finally, Telenor Group. Telenor Group needed to make a transition. It was moving from an older version of SharePoint to SharePoint 2013, but it didn't want to replace all of its infrastructure to test that. So it used Azure for very fast, efficient, and agile development and testing of SharePoint 2013. Telenor could validate that their applications worked and their entire environment would be great with SharePoint 2013. Taking advantage of Azure for its dev test environment helped it save costs and move to SharePoint 2013 in a much more agile and fast way. Now let me take you aside and show a few demos on how best to use this environment and how easy it is to get going. Now to start off this demo, first I want to show you how to create an amazingly powerful SQL Server straight here from the portal. So first let me go into New and select Compute, because that's what I'm building. And you can see I have quite a few options available to me straight away, including SQL Server 2014 Enterprise on Windows Server 2012. Now let me actually click See All. So if I actually search for SQL Server, you'll see quite a few options come up. I have an always-on available solution. I have that SQL Server 2014 solution. I even have a few SQL Server 2016 options for me to deploy with that's still in CTP. I'm going to use SQL Server 2014 and deploy that. After reading through that information, I'll hit Create, and away I go. So first, obviously the basics, creating the virtual machine. So let's just call it Corey VM SQL 1. The username, I like to pick my own name. And then, of course, the user password. So this is to log into the machine. I can pick what subscription I want to run it in. This is going to be in Corey application. And then I'm going to pick the resource group. And the resource group is the containing object for all the different parts of this application. So that'll have the NIC in it and the virtual machine and the storage account, all stored in that same group. So I can quickly create and deploy it. I'm going to go ahead and go into West US. And from there, now I can pick my size. And from here, you can see I have some recommended sizes, but I actually want to dig in and do a view all and take a look at all the different options of sizes that I have available to me. You can see quite a few, from small to very, very large. And in fact, in this situation, I'm going to pick a very large one. Going down, I'm going to pick the GS5. And so you can see from this information, the GS5 has 32 cores available to me and 448 gig of memory. Just gigantic. I can also add 64 data disks, which means 64 terabytes of space for me to deploy this single SQL server. The S signifies that this is premium storage, which is also what I want to be able to run as fast as possible. So let me go ahead and select that. Now I get into some interesting things. First, as mentioned, I can select premium storage, which is definitely what I want to be able to get the performance I'm looking for with SQL. I can scroll down here and see my storage account is going to be auto-generated as part of this group. And then also I have solutions like the virtual network and subnet that this is going to deploy into. Because this is dev test, I don't really care. But if I would actually want to go dig in and select different subnets, I could come in and click in and actually define specific subnets that I want to deploy this into to make sure it will fit into my entire ecosystem. I can also control the security group that I want to deploy this into to make sure that I'm locking this system down as best as possible. Then, of course, monitoring and turning on the storage account that all of my monitoring and diagnostics will go into. This includes things like CPU performance and memory usage. You can even put SQL-based diagnostics directly into this account. So after I've decided all of that, from here, now I can really select the SQL-specific options. So you can see I can select different connectivity options. And scrolling over this, you can see this gives me different access control for that SQL server. And it will actually change the network security group that's deployed based on what option I select here. So here I can say local inside the VM only, which means no port 1433 will be open. SQL will only be accessible from that box. Private, which means only within that virtual network, so no public internet access, so locking it down for me to use perhaps with other applications and solutions. And then, of course, public, being able to open it up to the public internet, which means anyone can access it if they know the right password information. Of course, selecting the port, so 1433, the standard SQL port. Because I'm doing public, I will want to turn on SQL authentication. And so this will enable me to access it remotely without worrying about other folks accessing it remotely. So simple login name and the same password that I pulled in from before I'll keep here. And now let me configure the storage information. And so you can see here, I can select how big of a storage solution I want to run this SQL Server. The default starts off with 1 terabyte, which is 1 disk, the throughput and the IOPS to match that. And so you can see I can actually select the different IOPS options to increase. And so if I'm looking for a lot of IOPS on this account, 80,000, which is the max that we offer, I can scroll all the way up to the top. And this will change the different values around it as I scroll it. And of course here I can scroll all the way up to 64 terabytes. So this will take 64 data disks and connect them all as part of this single click experience and be able to make a pool of all of those data disks combined to really optimize the usage of SQL Server on this account. And then, of course, I can even change the storage optimization. And this is a configuration in SQL Server itself. I can make it general, transactional processing, or configure it to be a data warehouse solution. So in this case, I'll say data warehousing, hit OK. And now a few more of the management solutions. I can change the automated patching options, be able to decide when to patch the solution or turn it off if I want to manage it myself. So the schedule allows me to pick the day, I can pick the start time, and of course the window that this is allowed to run in. I can turn on backup to be automated and built into the SQL deployment. This keeps the retention period based on whatever setting I want, 15, 30 days. It picks the storage account I want it to go into, and even allows me to enable encryption with a password. Finally, I can even integrate this with Azure Key Vault, enabling me to configure the Key Vault integration with a set of URLs and the principal secret names to be able to lock down access to the data based on Key Vault-based encryption. Now that I'm done with all that, I can scroll through and take a look at all the options I've selected, make sure it's the things that I wanted, and from there I can just hit OK and I can go to town. In this case, because it takes a few minutes for this to get started, I've actually already created one to show you. So here I have a Query SQL G5 ready to go. And you can see here I have the virtual machine, the NIC, the security groups, and all of the network connectivity set up already. So first, let me open up the virtual machine. So here you can see the virtual machine. It's got a public IP address already set up. It's got a DNS label configured for it. And of course, it's already tracking the CPU usage and the monitoring. Now, I'm not actively using this instance, as you can tell. It's also a very big instance. Since it's a G5, there's 32 cores and 448 gig of memory. So it's going to take a lot of work for me to get that CPU up and running. I can also take a look at the security groups. And so here I've got the security group set up for public access. And so if I take a look at what that looks like, from an inbound security rules, you see I have, of course, RDP, so I could log into the box. And it also has opened up SQL access on 1433 to anyone. And this is what it means to have that open access. The selection to make it available publicly turns into the security rule. I've changed nothing on this deployment after that initial launch. And so it's ready for me to just launch and go. And so let me actually show you what this looks like. So first I can connect into the machine. and it checks the security and makes sure everything's ready. And so right in this machine, you can see I've got it set up. This one, I did not do the 64 terabytes of storage. I've gone up to 7 terabytes. And so I have this ready to go. I can put my database on here and I'm ready to launch. But just to show you that public access and what that really means, let me actually get out of Remote Desktop and connect just from my management studio. And so here on my local machine, this is not inside the virtual machine. I can connect using, as you can see, SQL VM G5. So this is the machine. This is the DNS service that I had originally launched. I can log in using my SQL credentials. And just like that, I'm now accessing my SQL Server. I've done nothing additional to this instance. I just launched it based on those settings. And now I can come in and play around directly from it using my SQL Management Studio. And check the properties and show everything running. You can see the processors are there, the amount of memory. And of course, I've got all of the things that you'd expect for the deployment to be generated and created and easy to go. Now that I've shown you how to create a very fast and powerful SQL server, let me show you how to do a few more interesting things. Unless, of course, you work on the SQL team, where SQL is the most interesting thing in the world. What I'm going to show you is how to create a SharePoint farm. And this enables a full deployment of a farm with multiple instances with SQL and SharePoint and Active Directory all deployed with a single click. So I'm going to go into Compute and go to the SharePoint 2013 HA farm. And here I can read the details of what's being deployed. It's a 3-tier farm topology that's highly available using SQL Server 2014 Always On as part of that backend data source. So let me hit Create and get going. So first, again, the basics. So I'll start off with the farm name, and let me go ahead and put my initials in there so I can remember which is which. Okay. Now let me pick the resource group. And again, this is the containing resource group for all of the solutions and aspects of this farm, all of the VMs and NICs and load balancing. Let me hit OK. Now again, the infrastructure settings. So here I configure the actual virtual machine settings. And so I'm going to pick my username. Again, pick my name. It's easy to remember. Let me pick the password and confirm it. And the account name prefix. And so we're going to generate a bunch of storage accounts as part of this. And so this is the prefix that's used for each one of those storage accounts. Let me make it Corey Store. And I'm going to keep the default here for the virtual machine name. And the premium account I'm going to use because I'd like to, again, get that high performance storage account. So now I can actually get into the application settings. So here you can see Active Directory settings. So I can decide what is the domain name that I want to use for my Active Directory. What is the actual domain to log in later on? And so this, of course, can configure both the domain name, but also pick the size for that Active Directory server box. I'm going to pick a small one because it's Active Directory, so I don't need to worry too much about its performance. And now I can get into the SQL settings. And so somewhat similar to the previous demo, here I can actually configure the size of my SQL Server virtual machine. That's going to be the backend data source for my deployment. Here I'll actually pick a much larger one, and let's go to the DS14. I also get to pick one witness, and so this will deploy 2 of the standard DS14s and then 1 witness, which is the third box, to make sure that I can get that highly available capability. And of course, my account password name. And I'll confirm that password. Get it right. Okay. And move on. And then finally, the SharePoint server settings. So this configures not only what's going to be deployed on the SharePoint instance, but how it's going to be accessed. So I pick my public IP address because I know this will be publicly accessible. And I can pick the domain name for what that SharePoint web tier will be. So let's do Corey SP Farm. And that's available. So it is checking globally whether that DNS name is available. And so it is. Now I can pick the virtual machine size for the actual SharePoint instances in the front. I'll make this DS12. And of course, the setup user account password. Let's pick a password that works here. Let's pick another password that works. There we go. Perfect. The server farm account password, and I'll confirm that password as well. And then, of course, the farm password as well. And so quite a few passwords to insert here, and make sure that you can lock down the different parts of your SharePoint farm in different ways. So if you want to lock down different solutions to different end customers, you can. And then, of course, the content site template. And so quite a few different options here. You can turn it into a wiki site. You can turn it into a team site, a document workspace, all of the different options that you have as part of a normal standard SharePoint deployment, you can configure right here in the Azure portal experience to deploy. And so if I use wiki site and hit OK, now I can see all of the final solution options that I've selected, and I'm running that final validation to make sure it's all going to pass. And so with this, I'd have a large SharePoint farm ready to roll. But just like SQL, I've actually created one ahead of time to show you what the outcome looks like. And so here's Corey Farm RG. And so here you can see I've got a deployment set across Active Directory, SharePoint, and SQL. So I've got these deployed with load balancers on each one. Let me actually get into the more details of all of the different resources that were created with this single click. So here you can see I've got the NIC for each one of those VMs. I've also got the virtual network that's been deployed to be able to have this all as a part of a single private network in my deployment. So let me actually zoom in and take a look at the SharePoint VM. So here you can see SharePoint VM deployed. And I can go in and take a look at all of the different accesses to it. The size, the subscription name, and the computer name. And so after I take a look at that, of course, I can also take a look at this load balancer. And you can see here I have the public IP address that's available. So if I click into that public IP address, here you can see the actual name of the SharePoint farm. So if I go ahead and copy this and allow that access and go here, here you can see it pulls up authentication. And so I know that I made it Contoso. And of course the password that I selected. And then this gives me access to my farm that I've deployed, which I have apparently spelled incorrectly as part of the wiki page. So I've got a farm deployed, I set it up as a wiki site, and again, I've not logged into any of these instances. No VMs have been touched. All of this was fully configured as part of that single-click launch that I deployed these instances and now have a wiki site ready for me to go play with. And I could do that with all of those different configuration options and get going amazingly fast. Now that I've shown you SharePoint, the last demo that I want to show you is a very, very fast way to deploy a Dynamics AX solution onto Azure infrastructure. But this is so powerful, it actually requires a specialized user experience. So let me go over here to the Dynamics Lifecycle Services Experience, or LCS. This offers deployments of very, very complex solutions. It allows you to set up services as part of deployment, configure diagnostics and monitoring, takes advantage of updates and supports. It's experience built by the Dynamics team to take advantage of that agile Azure environment while still being able to fully function and build out your Dynamics solution. So let me click in and actually show you what this looks like. So if I click into my Events R3 experience, I can scroll over and take a look at all the tools that I have available to me. Many different options to be able to control and configure solutions, whether it be Configuration Manager, to be able to manage the actual deployment configuration, System Diagnostics to take a look at the monitoring or run some updates on my instances. This enables me to manage and monitor the full life cycle of this deployment, not just that initial click and go. In this scenario, though, let me actually click Cloud Hosted Environments and show you a little bit of what this looks like. So let me click Add. And so as part of this, I can decide what type of environment I want. Is it highly available? Is it dev test? Is it demo? And so I'm going to pick a highly available AX environment. And this enables me to deploy, let's do a retail highly available. And so this is building up my solution. And so you can see here, very, very simply and very quickly, I now have the environment options for me to configure. You can see similar size selections that I showed you in the previous portal, but now as a part of this LCS experience. And so I can build my own experience, Dynamics Cori AX, and select the different sizes that I may want and the different counts that I want. So the AOS server, maybe I want 6 or 5. Maybe I want a different size. And so you can see all the different options of sizes. Maybe this one I want the G3, and away I go. And so I can, with this option, see what my deployment's going to look like. Again, I've got a domain server here ready to roll and a remote desktop service that's going to allow accessing this. And so with this, that, and next, I can go ahead and deploy. But like the other examples, this will take a little time for me to get ready. So instead, let me show you one that's already been deployed. So first, let me click into this AX ARA demo. So here, this is just a single virtual machine. It's been deployed already, and it's enabling me to go play around with this experience. And so what's great is I can go directly log in and click here, and straight from this experience, I can get a remote desktop onto the box and be able to connect in. And so it tells me my credentials. So it's a built-in administrator, and the password is listed here. So with this, I can now go in and connect and log into this machine that's got the full AX demo ready to roll. And again, let me confirm the security. And what's amazing about this is that it deploys all aspects of what's required to get a full dynamic solution up and running. And you'll see on the next example, that can be in a single machine like this one, or it can be a set of multiple machines that you may want to deploy into. And so here I'm deployed, and the full solution is ready for me to play with. So you can see I've already got sales revenue and cost of goods sold. And so this is a full Dynamics AX experience on this demo machine that's been deployed with just a few clicks and now has everything ready for me to start playing with and learning or testing or developing against Dynamics AX. If I go back and show you a full high availability solution, here you can see this isn't just a single VM. Now I've got multiple virtual machines deployed, including SQL Server, the front ends, and of course the domain servers. And so here, this gives me this high availability solution. I can log into each one of these. It's fully cloud hosted, which means it's agile. I can deploy and delete as I want to. I've chosen the sizes that I want, and it enables me to both do dev test and highly available production workloads all in the same experience. And so this takes the power of the Azure infrastructure, the power and agility that's enabled with those simple virtual machines, and creates an entire dynamic environment to deploy, manage, update, and support those Dynamics AX 2013 experiences. Just a fantastic solution, and I beg you to go try this out. Now that I've shown you how to easily deploy and quickly take advantage of the Azure infrastructure with solutions like SQL Server, SharePoint, and Dynamics AX, I hope you'll go and give it a try. Thanks so much for listening. And now we'd like to open it up for a set of Q&A.